Hello and welcome to the Mature Living Podcast. I'm Riley Runnells, editor of Mature Living, and each month we will be interviewing someone in the community who is making a difference or has a unique story to tell. So I am here with Martha Vetter. Thank you for joining us today, Martha.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here.
So tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, just kind of like your short story.
Oh, my short story. It could be so long. Well, I am originally from Akron. And I moved here a number of years ago when I was married to my first husband. Mm-hmm. And I remember saying, I do not like this place. And as soon as you're done with law school, we're leaving.
Fair.
And he graduated and left. And I have been here ever since mm-hmm. and fell in love with the place and started a company, RP Marketing Public Relations. And ran that for 25 years. And now I'm retired and coming back doing some other fun things that I didn't get a chance to do as much as I would have liked to while I was working.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so I want to take it all the way back to your childhood. So tell us about where you grew up and kind of what that was like for you.
Okay. Well, I am one of 14 kids.
14?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
14 kids. I'm number 11. Mm-hmm. I have 3 younger sisters. And I grew up in a wild and crazy and very busy family.
I'm sure.
We only lived together in the same house for 1 year. My oldest sister went away to college at 16. Mm-hmm. And then most of us, as we got older, I think my parents intentionally sent us away to college. So we had a really happy childhood, went to Catholic schools for 12 years. And then when it was time to go away to college, decided I wanted to go to Bowling Green.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go to the big schools where a bunch of my family was at Ohio State and Michigan. And my brother was at Miami. And mm-hmm. I thought, I don't want to go where my brother is because I've been following him my whole life. He's a year older than I am. So out of the blue, I'm like, hey, how about Bowling Green? So I went there for a visit and fell in love with the place. And that's where I did my undergrad.
I love that. That's awesome. So tell me about what you studied at Bowling Green and what your college experience was like.
So initially when I went to school, I thought I wanted to be in healthcare in some way. Mm-hmm. And I thought a nurse. And so there's a reason this is Mature magazine, right? Mm-hmm. So this is back in the day where they had slides.
Yeah.
And so we were watching a slide of some sort of blood transfusion, something, a slideshow in the lab at Bowling Green, and I literally fainted from seeing the blood.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm like that too. I understand.
So like, okay, I guess being a nurse is not what I should be doing. So then I thought, I'll go into medical records technology, which my family, my friends, everybody's like, you're nuts. That's not you. And I'm like, oh yes. So I transferred actually to the University of Pittsburgh for a semester and hated everything about it. And I'm like, wow. I need to go back to Bowling Green where my friends are, where my life is. So I went back and I was kind of a lost soul and didn't know what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And my advisor's like, well, you'd better figure it out because you're a junior now and you know, I have a lot of credits, but not towards a major.
Right.
And she said, why don't you get into writing? You're a good writer. And I'm like, I love writing. She goes, why don't you go into journalism? And I'm like, I don't want to work for a newspaper. Like I knew I didn't want to work for a newspaper and I didn't want to do TV. And she said, well, you could do a magazine, you could do PR. And I'm like, what's this PR? Like I didn't even know what PR was.
Yeah.
And so she explained it to me. And I'm like, okay, I like to write. Magazine writing is intriguing to me and this PR thing kind of maybe. And so I switched majors and went into PR. And the journalism school at that time was in the College of Business, mm-hmm. which I really wish it still was because I learned so much having had to take all of those business classes.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
It was really cool. And then when I started my company, and I started it with 2 other women, mm-hmm. when we started our company, all those business classes really helped so much. Not that I understood business very well, but I did understand what I didn't know, if that's helpful. So I got my journalism degree and eventually got into PR and then I went on and got a master's degree in business and organizational communication as well.
Oh, nice. So, yeah, that I would imagine that all those together made you extremely competitive when it came to starting your company.
It was very helpful. It was really, really helpful. I remember talking to the dean of the School of Journalism at one point saying, I really hope you stay in the College of Business because it was so helpful to me personally.
Right.
But I know that, things change. And
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And so kind of walk me through the path from your postmasters to then starting your company.
Okay. Well, I actually got my master's while we started the company.
Oh,
I had
wow.
started
Busy
it.
bee.
Yeah, I had started it before when I was in Akron, and I actually have it from the University of Akron. And then I just let it slide. My life changed. And then when we started our company, Jenny Wilson and Ann Roman and myself, we originally had a company called Laura Mark and Gibbs.
Okay.
And we went and started our own little shop. And Anne is a phenomenal PR practitioner, and she was getting her certification from PRSA, her accreditation. And I was going to too. And we thought, well, what if you get your accreditation and I get my master's? And so we decided to kind of divide and conquer, if you will. And so I went and got my master's. So we started our company kind of almost on a whim, if you will. We were frustrated where we were. It was a great company, but we just had a desire to do something different. And we got together one day at lunch, the three of us, and we're like, let's just do this. Let's just do it. And within 6 months, we resigned our positions and started. And one of our very first clients was Borders Books and Music.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
I remember Borders.
Do you? They were phenomenal. We loved working with them. And we took off from the very beginning. And it was just three women doing great work. But Ann Roman, as I said, is a phenomenal PR practitioner. Jenny Wilson was a great designer. And the three of us just made a really good team. And after about a year, we had the opportunity to either stay small or to really grow and try to turn it into something. And so we voted to grow.
Right.
And eventually Jenny Wilson, who was a young mom at the time, she opted to have us buy her out at that time because it was just becoming way busy. And Anne eventually became the head of marketing and communications at Borders Books.
Oh, wow.
So she became our client. And suddenly it was just me. And I remember panicking and talking to one of our consultants at the time and saying, I can't do this. Anne did so much of the work and had 50% of our clients. And I was like, I have clients I don't even know now because Anne did her thing and I did mine.
Right.
And my consultant said, I promise you, Martha, and in 6 months, you're going to say it's the best thing that ever happened to you because you can make the decisions, you can be independent. And so he called me 6 months to the day later, and all he said was, well, and I'm like, I love it. So I just have had the very, very best career working with phenomenal clients, a great team. We've done some really fun work, and I loved my career.
Yeah, that's incredible. And it's really inspiring too, not only just from you continuing on the company, but the fact that three women getting together, starting their own company, it's inspiring to other women who might be thinking of doing the same thing.
I agree. And you know what? The biggest thing, and we've said it to so many people, you really need to just do it because you can think about it and talk about it all day long. And you'll usually end up talking yourself out of it. Whereas if you just if you're good at your craft, whatever it is, even if it's washing cars, if you're the best car washer, you can make money.
Absolutely.
Whatever, you just need to dedicate yourself to doing it. And one of the things, we were young, we were in our early 30s. One of the things we told ourselves, we're good at our craft. We were arrogant or confident enough to know that we were good. And if this didn't work out, we knew we'd just go get other jobs. Right. It's not like it would change our whole lives and we would never work again.
Right.
So we had that, I don't know, chutzpah, bravery, whatever you want to call it, to just go and jump in and try it. And it really did work well for us.
Well, talk to me too. Did you face any problems or any disadvantages as you were going through it, either because of being a woman or otherwise?
Yeah. So really, no. And we always said no because we wanted our work to stand on its own.
Right.
And honestly, we were good. Yeah. And so, and clients want good work at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
They also want somebody that they like working with. When that phone rings, you want to pick up the phone and say, hey, hi, how are you? Versus oh my God, that person's calling me again.
Right.
So we were friendly and nice and easy to work with. That's part of just who our personalities were.
Yeah.
And so we had good clients who allowed us to do great work. And we didn't have a lot of roadblocks. Now, being on the other side a little bit, I can see that there were probably a lot more than we appreciated at the time.
For sure.
There very much was a ceiling. There very much was an old boys club. And that was all real. We just didn't let it define us. And we're like, forget it. I would swear here if it was, like, forget it. No, we're just going to go boldly through and not pay any attention to that. And it really did work for us to just focus on our craft and doing great work.
That's incredible. That's so inspiring. So tell me, obviously you ended up selling your company and then starting Chicks for Charities. So talk about that process, kind of why you started this Chicks for Charities organization and the process of then getting, transitioning from owning your company to then doing this.
Okay. So we started Chicks for Charity while I was at RP back in 2006. And there was an organization in town called the Furniture Bank at that time who helped people would get Section 8 housing, but then they didn't have anything to put in their home.
Right.
So Paula Massey, who has since passed away, she started this group where they would get all sorts of furniture, pots and pans, rugs, all sorts of things that if you got Section 8 housing, you could come in and pick out what you wanted. It was like a store, only it was all free. So they could, but they were going through some really tight financial times.
Yeah.
And so Stan Massey, her husband, worked for me, and we were brainstorming how we could help them. And for a long time, I had an idea of what if we got 100 women to give $1,000. That's $100,000, right? And I realized it didn't work because I didn't know 100 women that had $1,000 back then. So it just kind of stayed stale in my head. And then as this opportunity came up, I brought that idea up to the team. And then one of the women, who's a woman now, Anita Holman, she said, well, I don't have that type of money. And she says, besides, nobody ever asked me to give.
Right.
And she was just a young designer. And we're like, oh, boom. That was a brainstorm moment.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so what if we, instead of saying 100 women give $1,000, what if we had 1,000 women give $100,000, $100? So we still have $100,000 to give away.
Absolutely.
Right. And let's ask people that are never asked to give to be a part of it. Let's make this not the junior league. This is for anybody. This is for the school teacher at St. Pius or the nurse at Toledo Hospital or a young executive at Libby. It could be anybody. We're going to ask everybody to give and participate.
Yeah.
And those little buckets of money on their own, you put them together and you have enough to really make a true difference.
Absolutely.
And so that's where it started. And, but we wanted to keep it simple. So it's always been very few meetings, no board, and ask every chick to do something on their own to raise $50, $100, $150, whether it's a wine tasting with your friends or just throwing money in a tip jar or a euchre tournament. And then we had little girls involved having lemonade stands. And
that's so sweet.
This one little girl comes into the office. She has a little baggie that's all well worn, full of coins. And she's so proud to give us the baggie. And I think it had like $15.38 in it. And honestly, Riley, it's the best donation I ever got.
Yeah.
Right? Because she meant it so from her heart. I'm like, that $15 was worth way more in so many ways than somebody that writes a check for $5,000.
Absolutely.
Right.
And even to a kid, that's a lot of money for a kid.
It is. And
she probably worked really hard at that lemonade stand.
And she was and that's like her face. And I wish I had a photo of it. Her face, she was so proud and so beaming, like, look what I did. Like the way she handed it to us, it was a beautiful moment. And we thought, okay, the junior chicks are a part of this and we really have to help nurture that because teaching people at a young age that they too can give back. And it's not about the size of their bank account. It's about the size of their heart, right? You just want to do something to give back.
Oh, that is so lovely. So, that's really the true meaning of the organization.
It is. And then because we never raised huge buckets of money, we would choose another charity every year or two. And it was always an under the radar charity because we can't make a huge difference to, I don't know, the Red Cross or the Art Museum, right? But we could make a huge difference to Mom's House or some of these small under the radar organizations. And we gave them our money. And that worked really well.
Right.
Then in 2017, I sold my company, and the woman who bought it, she was just really, she bought a company, right? She was a first-time business owner, first-time entrepreneur.
Right.
Chicks was not what in her head of what she wanted to be doing. So it just kind of went on hiatus, and it just kind of died for a while, and wasn't really sure if I wanted to do it again and get the team to do it again, because our company, RP, is the one that did all the back-end work.
Right,
we weren't a 501c3. We were originally like 35 women who became 1,900 chicks. It just grew on its own. And so we, when we decided to come back thanks to Debbie Monaghan really saying, Martha, do it. I'm like, all right. She said she'd help, but she's been so helpful. That's wonderful. We've jumped back in, but we've also working on getting a 501c3 certification. So we're an official nonprofit, which changes the game a lot.
Definitely.
But we're working really hard to continue the spirit of it's fun, it's easy, there aren't a lot of rules. You just do something fun and you give back.
Right.
And so that's our
Well, and I
goal.
think it's interesting too. You don't often think a lot of 501c3s donating to other 501c3s.
Yes.
So, I mean, that even the model of the business is very unique compared to other nonprofits.
And Riley, you're right, because one of the things we didn't really realize that as then we're going through the legal process and getting the certification through the IRS, they're all like, what? You're going to be giving the money you raise away? So there's been a lot of additional paperwork or discussions on how this works and why we're doing it. And once they get it, they get it. But your question or your comment is spot on. Like, why would a nonprofit give another nonprofit money?
Right. So talk about, though you said it went on a little bit of a hiatus, but now it's coming back. So talk about kind of this resurgence of bringing it back. You are now established as a nonprofit, and kind of walk us through what you are doing, who you're working with, etc.
Okay. So we are a 501c3 pending. It's not official. We are hoping it comes through any day. Marcy Captor's office is really helping us with that. And so our goal is to get back to where we were because, a lot of people have moved on or their lives have changed. So we have to reinvigorate that mailing list. Yeah. And we're having a kickoff and some award. We're going to give out some awesome awards on May 30th at the Imagination Station. So we're really helping to get reinvigorated. At the same time, along with asking all the chicks again to do their little events, whatever they are, we are also implementing a few additional programs, which we can do now as 501c3.
Right.
So we're going to have something called the Cookie Jar Trust, where we're going to ask if any of the chicks, junior or regular age, want to be a part of it. We're going to give away micro grants, and they will decide who and how to give away these micro grants to other people that are really, really in need in our community.
Yeah.
We have something called the $100 Chick Challenge, which is a pay it forward program where we're going to give chicks the name in a hat or something. I'm not sure how we're going to choose who, but you pick a number or a name out of the hat, and if it's your name, you get $100 to pay forward to however you want.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And your only job as a chick then is to go pay it forward to a great bartender or the lady down the street with cancer or your neighbor who needs new tennis shoes or whatever you want to do. You get to pay it forward. And then you just have to tell us about it, and we can use those stories to inspire other people.
For sure. That's wonderful too, because it doesn't necessarily have to be a specific organization. Right. It could just be an individual in need or, a group of individuals in need. That's lovely.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we're also hoping to start up in the next 6 months or so the Junior Chicks Advisory Board, because we really want to get them hyper involved and a part of the process. And so we want to get that. It's more an idea at this point, but really get that fleshed out how that would work. And so they're a part of our organization from the very beginning.
Absolutely. So. I mean, like you said, those junior chicks, not only is it a great lesson for them, but it's so clear that they want to give and they want to help. Yeah. So I think that's a wonderful space to put yourself in too.
Yeah, I have a cute little story about that. So my granddaughter, who's 9, lives in Wisconsin. So not really even a chick, but is vicariously. She was like, how can I help? And she was having a birthday party. And I said, well, why don't you and your girlfriends brainstorm ideas that little girls could do? Because everybody asks, what can I do?
Right.
And she goes, okay, we'll brainstorm. And so they sent pictures, and they're all lined up at tables, and they have a whiteboard, and they're all raising their hands to have their ideas. It's the cutest
that's so sweet.
And so they decided their best idea was to paint little canvases and then auction them off. So they painted their canvases, and their moms auctioned them on Facebook. And in less than a weekend, they raised $750 for Chicks for Charity.
Oh my gosh.
And it was like, oh my gosh. So I'm like, Hans, my husband, I'm like, we have to go thank them. So we went to Wisconsin, and we took them all little gift cards, which, by the way, they don't want gift cards like Target anymore. They want them to coffee shops. Yeah. And they're 9.
All the trends.
Yeah. I'm learning so much. But they were so sweet, and they were so interested. And who's the money going to? We're helping little girls that need to go to school. And I'm like, yes, that's our charities, Hope Toledo. And it helps people get a really good education. And they were so enthralled with it. And I've even had them call me, little girls I don't know, to say, we want to, Grammy. They call me Grammy because that's what my granddaughter called me. Grammy, we want to know what's the next thing for chicks. And they're so dialed in now
That's
at
so
9 years old
sweet.
about how they can give back.
And that's really going to
And
stick with them through the rest of their
right.
lives too. I mean, you learn that behavior early and
Yep.
then it stays with you.
Yep.
That's wonderful.
Yep. And we try to celebrate the little wins as much as we would celebrate a huge win, right? So that
Right.
they are like, oh my gosh, we want to appreciate them. So they're
Mhm.
like, look, I just did this and these people really appreciate me. And it makes so much difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked about it a little bit, but talk about how you selected Hope Toledo to be your charity that you're focusing on.
Okay. So we cheated a little bit on this one because in prior years, every chick has a vote on who our charity will be.
Mhm.
We put forth 3 to 5 nominees, and then each chick can decide who it is, and whoever gets the most votes wins. However, since we've been quiet for so long, we didn't have the wherewithal to do the vote.
Mhm.
And so there were about a dozen of us who talked to different organizations, talked to different people. And I've known John Jones for a long time, and his organization's been very near and dear to my heart and to many others. And so we started talking about, like, let's just use them as our first one.
Right.
And so for a couple of years, it's going to be John Jones and Hope Toledo.
Mhm.
And then we'll do the vote after that once we're a little more established and we have our act together a little bit more.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And Hope Toledo has a wonderful mission.
They
so I
do.
think it's a great choice
Yeah.
if you had to choose instead
Yeah.
of making a whole vote.
Yep, it is, and he's so wonderful to work with, and I think we can really make a difference for them and getting word out about them and what they're doing and all that they're accomplishing.
Absolutely.
We're honored to work with them, truly.
Yeah. And I want to talk to you too, because we've talked a lot about the mission of Chicks and why other people are very passionate about it. But I really want to hear from you what makes you so engaged in the mission of Chicks.
Well, so I was always brought up to give back and to do what we could do. And I didn't always have a lot of money. So, doing just a little bit was sometimes just the way I could make a difference. And it worked for me. And I always feel better when I'm helping.
Right.
I've told my husband a few times, like, I get more joy out of giving my money away than spending it.
Mhm.
So getting others to also feel that vibe and to feel how good it feels when you can help somebody out.
Yeah.
That's really been very inspiring to me. And then I've worked with so many women in my career because our agency was not all women, but there was a lot of women from all walks of life and all income levels. And it's just amazing what we could all do when we work together as a company, but then what we could all do when we work together to raise funds to help another organization or help somebody in need. And, there were even times at our company, a woman that worked for me, her whole home burned down, her whole apartment. She lost absolutely everything. Her team, the people that cared about her, came together in a few weeks and raised so much money and stuff for us. And everybody felt good about trying to help somebody, even they were going through a horrible experience, but that little bit you could do made such a difference. And when you see that day in and day out, it's that we need to share more of that. We need to do more of that. And I've never been a rule follower. I'm not a big one for meetings and committees and all the hoopla and being real formal about things. I'm very casual. And I just thought anything that I'm a part of, I want it to kind of reflect that. Can we just relax and have fun?
Yeah.
Can we laugh? Does it have to be so serious? And laughter doesn't mean that you're not doing great work. Right. You're not doing high quality work. It's like, can we just do it in an environment where we're enjoying it and having fun? So that's been part of the Chicks thing as well, is how do we take that vibe, that aura of enjoying life and using it to good and not trying to be so formal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I want you to we've talked a lot about your company, about Chicks, but tell me about the other things that you're involved in outside of those things. You said you're retired now, and I know you've been involved with organizations like Lords, the Toledo Humane Society. Talk a little bit about those pursuits.
So when I retired, I took a lot of naps, and I worked in my garden for a long time.
As you deserve.
I was a bum for a few years, and I loved it. I really did. I'm kind of missing it right now. But I've been on the board for Spring Point Project for 15 years or so. Mm-hmm. They're a group out of Minnesota that is working on a cure for type 1 diabetes using pig islets. And it's way over my head, the science of it, but it's fascinating. And I have a stepson who's a type 1 diabetic. So we're really making headway and really coming up with a true cure for type 1 versus just all the insulin and the treatment that there's been for 100+ years. So I'm very involved in that. And then I sit on the board for Lords University, which is a great organization. That's about all that I'm doing right now. Chicks is really taking up a lot of my time. I've been very involved with the Humane Society and very involved with hospice for a lot of years. One of the divisions of our company was hospice. And so I always like kind of appalls people, but I'm kind of a death junkie. Death totally intrigues me, much more than scares me. And so, and doing it right and feeling comfortable that death is going to happen. So many people are really weirded out by it, and I'm not. And so it's just part of what I like to do too, is really help people through that really difficult period of time, whether personally or more typically it's not the actual person that's dying, but the family members that are going through it or the friends that are going through it, and try to be there for them and help them understand what death looks like and how it's going to happen, and just to help be part of their team.
Yeah, absolutely. So. And, I'm intrigued by this myself, because I think people who are more interested in death are very fascinating. And so I'm wondering, for you, what do you hope that people will remember of your legacy or would write on your gravestone?
Well, I hope they'll say I was fun. So the death lady that's fun. Well, I hope, I want to stand for integrity.
Yeah.
It's always been really important to me. I'm competitive. I work hard. I want to win. I've always wanted to make money. I want to give back. But all those things I've wanted to do under the veil of having integrity and being able to sleep at night, and always feel like I did my best, and I tried to honor the people that I've worked with and I worked for, and to be a part of their teams. So to be known as a fair and honest person is probably the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And tell me finally, what advice would you give to other women or other people in general who might be looking to make a career change or trying to find their passion?
Yeah. So I'm a big believer in following your passion, because it's how it worked for me. So that my experience in my life was, I did things that I really loved doing, and I loved my career. I loved my job. I loved being in PR. I loved being in marketing. And so I would encourage anybody that's thinking about it, find what it is that you really like and that you're good at, and go for that. And as I said earlier, really just go for it, try it. And even if you try it, on a part-time basis or whatever, figure it out, and you'll be better off for it, I think. Or you need to say, okay, I'm going to work to pay my bills, but the rest of my passion is going to be in what I do outside of my life, my work life, right? Because not everybody has to have a great work life. I've always had a thing of threes. You can have a great work life, you can live in a great city, or you could make great money, right? Take two of the three. Because if you have a great job and great money, you can travel,
right?
Or if you live in a great city and you have a great job, then money doesn't matter as much, right? So you just find what's important to you and then find the way to work around to get towards that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. So on every episode of this podcast, we like to ask some fun questions at the end. So just to get to know you a little bit better. So first, I want to ask, what is the last book that you read?
I wish you weren't asking me that, because I have this wonderful stack of books and I haven't read in a few months. Although I did just read The Little Engine That Could, which is one of my favorite books.
It's a great book.
And I was reading it. One of my friends was asking when the best business books was. And I said, honestly, I've come back to The Little Engine That Could so many times, because it's just like, just keep going and you'll get there. Yeah. So can I say that?
You absolutely can. That's a great answer. What kind of music do you listen to?
Boy, I kind of listen to everything. So I love musicals.
Yes.
So I listen to a lot of musicals.
Do you have a favorite?
A favorite musical right now? Well, I loved Hamilton.
Of course.
My Fair Lady's kind of an old favorite of mine. And I like them all.
Yeah.
I like them all.
Me too.
Yeah. Yeah. My kids listen to country. So I'm like, okay, I listen to country. I'm rock and roll. I came up in that era and I love that. My husband's disco and I'm like, ooh, don't like disco. So I like all types of music, really.
Well, I was going to ask, even though it's spelled differently, you have to get the Eddie Vedder comments sometimes.
All the time. You get the Eddie Vedder comments.
Of course.
Yes. And we're not related and it's not spelled the same.
Right.
And there's even some Vedders here in Toledo where it is spelled the same. And we're not related to them either. my husband was from Wisconsin, and when we got married 23 years ago, he moved here. So
Gotcha.
my kids, two of my stepkids are here now, Valerie Vetter and Hans Vetter. But yeah.
Yeah. And tell me, do you have any favorite movies or TV shows?
Well, I don't, though it's old now, but Ted Lasso really resonated with me.
Absolutely.
And when we first started watching it, we actually turned it off because like this is kind of silly, and we couldn't understand it so well. And then somebody said watch it with the subtitles on it, and then it's like okay, and then it changed it all because like oh now we can understand every word they're saying.
It debunks the accents very quickly.
Yes, it does. And now we don't need that anymore because you get it's like reading Shakespeare. You know, when you first read Shakespeare, you're like, I don't understand this. Halfway through the book, you can translate it in your head, right? But I've loved the lessons of Ted Lasso.
Yeah, the leadership lessons in that show are unparalleled.
Yeah.
What are some hobbies or special interests that you have outside of work and your other pursuits?
Well, I love gardening. If you just look at my hands, you'll know that, although I'm not doing a very good job with it. And I have 5 grandkids, so I love getting to spend time with them, although everything seems to have taken a backseat to Chicks for Charity for a while.
For sure. And talk about how you care for your personal health, mainly your mental health, outside of, I think sometimes people can struggle once they retire. They might, wrap all their purpose up into a job or something like that. Just what are some tips and tricks for you caring for your own mental health?
So I'm rather introverted in many ways. Like I don't go to any of the galas in town. I'm not a party person that way. I'm a hang out on the patio with a glass of wine with a few friends type person. So one of the things that has been very helpful to me when I've been busier in my life and now again is just really truly taking time for myself. Yeah. And that can be reading a book, right? Working in the garden, going to bed early and not feeling guilty about it. And I'm happy there. I'm in a happy place there. Sometimes my husband, he's a hunter. And so he goes on these hunting trips. And I love that. I'm like, don't come back too soon because I just want my quiet time. I'll even do like a stupid puzzle on the kitchen table, right? And just kind of detox my brain. And for that, it's very helpful. And what's been most helpful is giving myself the freedom to do it. Yeah. One of the best pieces of advice I got when I first retired was a woman told me, everybody's going to ask you to do things and you should just say no. For the first 6 months, even if you want to do them, you should say no. And that was amazingly helpful. Right. I said a no to a lot and I loved it.
That's an important skill to have is knowing when to say no.
It is. Yeah.
What are the qualities that you value in those that you work with and associate with personally?
All right, I can answer that one. I really value casual excellence, which is a term that we used quite a bit back in our work days, that the ability to be casual and to have fun, but also be excellent at your craft. And one of the things that I realized when we first started talking about casual excellence, so many people would think, oh, that just means I can just get to be casual. Like they only heard the casual part. Right. And I'm like, you still have to be A+ in your work. You still have to be kick-ass in your delivery. Absolutely. But do we have to do it in a staid, stuffy office, and so proper? Can we do great, awesome work, but yet also have some fun and laughs along the way? I'm in my whole life. Can we have a dinner party and still have some fun? Chicks for Charity. Can we run this organization but still have fun? And can we make sure we laugh on every single call that we have? Or something light, that it's not just so serious. So people that understand and appreciate being casual, but also fantastic at whatever their craft is, I love those people.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's wonderful. And tell me, are there any national charities that you gravitate toward? I know we've talked a lot about local charities and how Chicks is kind of trying to help the underdog, but are there any that you have supported over the years?
The ones that deal with type 1 diabetes, we have supported. The American Heart Association, we have supported. And then the National Humane Society are probably the 3 largest ones.
For sure. And then finally, if you could give your childhood self any piece of advice or encouragement, what would you say?
So I grew up with 5 brothers that were just older than I was. And I played on the men's tennis team in high school because we didn't have a girls' tennis team. So I would tell myself to do that, but you don't have to try so hard all the time, to give yourself a little more peace to relax and do stuff that's enjoyable to you and not always be working so hard to compete
Right.
or to, which I'm very competitive, as my family will tell you, but to just kind of relax a little bit more,
Yeah.
not stress about things so much.
That's great advice. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. We so appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
We want to thank you for listening. Make sure to check out Mature Living magazine in print and online, as well as all of the publications under Adams Street Publishing, including the Toledo City Paper, Toledo Area Parent, Ann Arbor Family, Current, and Findlay Living. Find us on social media or connect with us if you have any story ideas to share.